Let me say something briefly. Buganda is preeminent in Uganda based on the following considerations, which are really obvious. And you don't have to be emotional about it. Whether you are looking at demographic size, that's the population, the land size, the location, the levels of economic development, education, and commerce bequeathed by the colonial order. The answer is the same, that Uganda enjoys particular preeminence in our country. So you have to deal with it. It has nothing to do with the king, it has nothing to do with, because people confuse those two things. Therefore, Uganda is what, to use Professor Mazurui's words, should be called the heartland tribe. Heartland means the core, is the heartland tribe of Uganda. The way Prussia was to Germany. Those of you who study history, you remember Prussia. So Prussia was to Germany what Uganda is to Uganda. Now you start from there. So DP believes that if Uganda is not engaged, or if it is outrightly opposed, or if it is sulking at a critical moment like this, then no national endeavor of consequence can be realized. Because Uganda can interfere. We have seen this in the history anyway. DP has been a victim of that. Because Buganda was sulking after the Lancaster talks. That's actually how DP lost power. I don't want to pass judgment on whether we managed it well or whether we managed it badly, but I'm only stating the fact that the Buganda question determined what Uganda would be later. It became the birthmark. Just like in Africa, you need South Africa and Nigeria. Whether you like Nigerians, whether you hate them, whether you like South Africans, whether you hate them, but if those two walked away of the African Union would be thoroughly diminished. Also, in the world today, if the United States, China, and Russia, particularly the United States and China, are opposed to any international endeavor, then it is dead on arrival. Now, this is the other side which many people don't think about. When Buganda acts unilaterally, alone, when Buganda acts alone, ignoring what the rest of the country is thinking, then automatically they provoke a pushback from the rest of the country. But when they are part of a concerted effort, then its legitimacy is enhanced. That is why you had a lot. Thank you, Secretary General. That's why you had a lot during the coffee debate. Because Buganda weighed in very strongly. But Buganda also has its interests, its cherished aspirations. So, Buganda and Uganda have got to engage. We cannot afford a mutually blocking situation. We cannot afford what is called a zero-sum game. If Uganda was a normal country, Buganda would be the natural engine of Uganda's development, providing leadership, but more importantly, avoiding the temptation of domination. Those of you who read Shakespeare, you know the play called Measure for Measure. It says, even if you have the energy of a giant, don't use it like a giant. Even if you have the strength and energy of a giant, don't use it like a giant. So, we need a very honest debate. And only DP, again, can really lead this debate. Like we led it in the 60s. Because in the 60s, DP said, keep the king out of partisan politics. We were ignored and insulted, but we were eventually proved right. Read the book called The Desecration of My Kingdom. If you don't have a copy, I'm going to send each of you a copy. It is a book written by the king himself from exile. So, we cannot afford Uganda becoming an embattled kingdom. We want a Buganda which is at ease, confident, and feeling that it is a preeminent but equal partner for the construction of national unity. I can tell you that so far, this government has done certain things that are positive. Number one is the restoration of properties that belong to the kingdom. The so-called Ebiafe. And the failure by the government to articulate those contributions to engaging Buganda has allowed the lumpen political class to come in and fire up people based on issues that are not substantive, because the government is quiet. Indeed, it is said, when wise people keep quiet, fools dominate the debate. So far, most of the properties have been returned. There is only a discussion of properties in Buruli, in the areas of Nakasongola. This is a straightforward demand. They have been identified, they have been verified, and the matter should be settled without any fanfare. That matter is at the Ministry of Justice. It is not handled in public view, but I can confirm that it's time for the government to explain to the people of Buganda that there is engagement at that level to ensure redress. The DP position on federal is that federal is not a Buganda issue. It is a Uganda issue. Why? There is no community that filled an application form to belong to Uganda. They actually did not fill an application form, neither did the Baganda, Banyankole, Bakiga, Batoro, Bagisu, and the others. The Odoki Commission of 1995 reported that over 65% of respondents in our country favored a federal system of governance. In 2008, I wrote a paper which I presented at the Buganda conference. And I gave it a cheeky title, Who Fears Federalism? I said federalism is the highest stage of decentralization. Decentralization must grow. But right now, even the decentralization we have in Uganda is stunted. You can see the state of our districts. They are effectively impotent. Now, since we started with Bidandi Sali, who declared the government policy of decentralization, we needed to keep growing. Instead, there is a clawback. There is even a debate about whether the technocrats of Kampala City are better than the politicians. Because the time the politicians were there, in their own way, the city was being managed. Now the technocrats are there. I read Andrew Mwenda writing an article saying if somebody came to Kampala, they would ask, has there been a war here of recent? Because definitely the roads look like they have been bombed. But bombing can also be by neglect. In the UK, you have got England, Northern Ireland, Scotland, and Wales. But the best example is that of Wales. They started decentralization by declaring what they call the Welsh Development Agency. Now they have gone into a fully fledged Welsh regional government. Now that is decentralization which is moving forward. Why do we advocate for greater devolution of power as DP? Because we believe that decision making on resource allocation, development, and democratic governance should be made at the closest proximity to those affected by it. It empowers the communities and it provides ownership. And above all, it provides for equitable development and ensures accountability. Imagine if whatever I collected in my local church went to the bishop, then the bishop decides what should come back. I think I will eventually start reducing what I put in the bag. Our diversity as Uganda is something which is a blessing. It is not a curse. Are we not blessed that we are so diverse? We have Bakonzo, we have Banyarwanda, we have Bagisu, we have Basebei, we have Baganda, we have Bacholi, Barugwara, we have Basoga. Are we not blessed that we have that variety? You saw it during Chogam. Was that not a blessing? Imagine if we were just one tribe, one dance, one language, one type of food. So, this is a blessing. So I disagree with those who think that our diversity is a problem. What can be a problem is if one group becomes too dominant and starts loading it over others. The political class in Uganda should use our diversity as an effective vehicle for building national unity in diversity. This is something that we have thought about seriously. Finally, as president of the party, I'm going to be touring Uganda. First, to meet the leaders of the party. I have heard some people saying they have a problem with the leadership of MAO because when they declare that they are DP, they are put on trial. that they have got to defend themselves. There is nothing to defend, but there is something to explain. There is no accusation against Bibi. I've never heard any accusation. Unless somebody thinks that we are such a bunch of fools